Whether you believe in heaven or not, these people claim that during their near-death experiences, they experienced heaven firsthand. These are the top 5 real people who went to heaven and lived to tell about it. Coming in at number 5, we have Don Piper. Don Piper died on January 18th, 1989, and to his knowledge went to heaven. The pastor from Texas attended a pastor's conference that Wednesday in January. Within minutes of leaving the retreat center, Don drove onto a bridge spanning a lake. It was a fairly long bridge and there was water on both sides of the elevated highway. Don recalls approaching the end of the bridge, and before reaching the end, a tractor-trailer collided with his car head-on. Not only did the truck hit Don's car, it ran over the passenger side of a small Ford Escort, completely crushing the vehicle and killing Don Piper. Instantly, Don began an amazing journey. As for how Piper describes it, when he was killed, he was instantly transported to heaven's gates. Don found himself standing in front of a divine portal surrounded by familiar faces. Looking over the heads of his friends, Don saw a looming pearl gate. He describes his experience as being a magnificent edifice, and the gates of heaven looked like it had been sculpted from mother of pearl. Behind that portal, Don recalls seeing a light so bright that you could not see it in an earthly body. It could only be envisioned in a heavenly body because it was too bright, Don suggests. While Don stood at the gates of heaven, Pastor Dick Wanrecker of Klein, Texas stood on a Texas highway by Don's lifeless body. He had also attended the pastor's conference. He came upon the accident moments after it happened. The EMS personnel had told him that Don was dead. Don was transported to Herman Hospital in Houston. Miraculously, he suffered no head or internal injuries. However, virtually every bone in Don's body was either broken or shattered. His left arm and leg were completely severed and had to be rebuilt and replaced. Looking at his battered and pain-seared body, this man who had touched heaven's gates wanted to go back. But the prayers and love of family and friends pulled Don through 4 months of intensive therapy, numerous operations, and infections that on 2 occasions almost claimed his life. Coming in at number 4, we have Julie Papievis. As Julie Papievis was driving away from a shopping mall, a teen driver ran a red light, causing an accident where the teen driver ran into her at 50 miles an hour. The impact of the accident left her neck and head injured, and Julie was between life and death. Once rushed to the hospital, she was left unconscious and unresponsive, with brain scans showing no brain functions. Doctors were not hopeful for her situation. Julie remained unresponsive in a coma. While in the coma, Julie had been given a glimpse of heaven. She described it as being so vast that there was no real beginning or end to it. It was just perfect peace. She knew that she was there in that place and that she was dead. Even though she knew that she passed, Julie was not afraid to be there. She was actually happy. It felt like home to her, and Julie wanted to stay there. Julie also recalls seeing her deceased grandmother suddenly standing with her. One of her grandmas apparently told her that she cannot join them just yet and that she needs to go back. Julie reasons that she couldn't go back as she wasn't physically well, though her grandmother responded back by telling her that her body will heal and that she needs to go back and be happy. Then Julie's next memory is waking up in the rehab hospital. After several weeks of being left in a coma, the hospital staff gave no hope of recovery and urged her parents to release her to a nursing home. Though to the astonishment of the doctors, 6 weeks after the accident, Julie woke up. After 2 months of physical therapy, feeling and movement slowly returned to her left side. Her progress was nothing short of miraculous, as doctors believed that with her type of injury, she had a 4% chance of surviving. Julie progressed so well that in 2007, 10 years after the accident, she trained for and finished an indoor triathlon. In at number 3, we have Mary Neal. Mary Neal was an orthopedic surgeon residing in Jackson Hole, New York. On her day off, she found herself in a terrible kayaking accident in 1999. Mary was pinned underwater and was underwater for 30 minutes before being rescued. Due to being underwater for 30 minutes, Mary died due to drowning. During the half hour that she was submerged, Neal claimed she looked down on her body from a vantage point above it and felt herself travel to a place that she describes as heaven, where she encountered spirits of her departed ancestors and time seemed to slow down. There, the spirits informed her that her son would die, although they didn't say when or how. In 2009, her oldest son Willie was hit by a car and killed at the age of 20. But after being resuscitated, Neal miraculously survived the ordeal, telling her fellow kayakers that she had been to heaven. As Mary describes it, she felt her spirit peeling away from her body and going up towards the heavens. While there, she was instantly greeted by a group of beings, though not knowing what to call them. Though she didn't recognize them, she believes that they had been important in her life somehow. Mary recalls the group being overjoyed to welcome her and greet her with warmth and love. What she describes as her near-death experience was an absolute shift in time and dimension, as she experienced all of eternity in every second. Mary reports being able to look down upon her body and not wanting to go back to it, as it was bloated and purple with fixed eyes. There was no doubt to her that she wasn't physically dead. Though to everyone's surprise, after being rescued by her friends, she woke up. Neal suffered multiple broken bones, and the group was far from help, but in an inexplicable coincidence, the group found an ambulance parked nearby on a dirt road and was rushed to the hospital. Afterward, Mary was hospitalized for more than a month as she underwent multiple operations. Miraculously, she made a full recovery. Neal, being a doctor herself, she wouldn't even believe her own story if it didn't happen to her. Neal, now 62, recalled watching her fellow kayakers from above as they attempted to resuscitate her. In at number 2, we have Eben Alexander. The neurosurgeon Dr. Eben Alexander fell into a deep coma in 2008. The coma was due to a bacterial meningitis and from a harsh strain of E. coli. After being in the coma for a week, his doctors gave him a survival rate well below 10%. Additionally, if he did beat all odds and wake up, he would be in a nursing home for the rest of his life. Though by surprise, not only did he make a full and miraculous recovery, but he recounted an incredibly deep and profound near-death experience during his time in this coma. During his near-death experience, Eben entered what he thought of as heaven. Eben began a spiritual journey that took him to 3 destinations. The first place was a dark, jello-like, red-brown mud pool with rhythmic pounding sound that he calls the realm of the earthworm's eye. The second, which he calls the gateway, featured a bright light, captivating music, and along with an angel guide, which he described her as a beautiful woman with blue eyes and golden brown hair. Here he found himself in clouds flying over trees, fields, streams, waterfalls, and people. The third place that he recalls visiting in the afterlife was a place that he calls the core. This place was the culmination of his journey. In the core, Alexander reports an orb-like ball of light as he encountered God, the all-powerful, all-loving, and all-knowing creator, who gave him a message. The message that Alexander reported receiving from God was that God loved him unconditionally. Evil is necessary on earth because without it, human free will is impossible. And lastly, love will triumph over evil. Alexander then woke up, defying odds of almost certain death. He opened his eyes back in Lynchburg General Hospital. As a neurosurgeon, he had heard stories from patients about their own NDEs, which he had casually dismissed as hallucinations, never taking the time to entertain or explore what his patients recounted or what it could possibly mean. This is until he had an NDE himself. And finally, in at number 1, we have Tracy Morgan. You may recognize Tracy for his roles in Cop Out, The Other Guy, Sunday with a Chance of Meatballs, and his countless years on Saturday Night Live, but he isn't on this list for his comedy or acting abilities. He's on here as he had his own near-death experience. The star got into an accident in June of 2014 where he was rear-ended by a tractor trailer on his way home from a comedy show. Tracy and 2 other passengers were severely injured, while comedian James McNair wasn't as lucky and lost his life in the collision. Tracy suffered from head trauma, broken bones, and was stuck in a coma for 2 weeks. During an exclusive interview with Oprah, Tracy described his NDE during the interview. He recalls talking to his father, who had passed away in 1987. His father reportedly told him it was not his time to die, and that he still had to finish the job. During the interview, he stated that his life had been transformed because of that very moment. The actor said he truly believes he was in heaven, and that his late father, who died when Tracy was just 19, encouraged him to return to the living world. Well, there we have it. Thanks for tuning into this video. I will see you in the next one.